Hello and welcome to this week's Creator Talk. I'm sorry I didn't have it yesterday like I was originally planning those videos to be, but it was my son's 9th birthday, so can't really miss that. So today we're talking with Donal DeLay, and we're going to be talking as usual more business than art if possible.
Sounds fun.
Hopefully, some people get to learn a few things that will help them in the future, and we'll be able to bounce ideas around. Hello to Neob Comics in the chat. All right. So, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I can't really complain. It's just another lazy Sunday. Had a nice little 3-hour nap in the middle of the day, so you know.
Do you generally work on the weekends, or do you take it easy?
I usually work on the weekends, but since I finished No Cover, I decided to take weekends off. So it's been pretty nice.
Oh, that's reasonable. I mean, I've seen your workload. It's pretty heavy. I've seen quite a few different things you're either working on or have worked on. So generally, you seem to be in the busier side of things.
Yeah, I try to keep myself busy, got bills to pay and whatnot.
Do you do comic book full time? I understand.
Yes. Yep, full-time comic book artist.
Since when?
Oh gosh, since 2018, 2017.
No, that's a good stretch. You're
Yeah.
happy to hear that. I mean, more people. It'd be nice if more people could live off their love of the art, more or less. And I know from everything that you say and everything that you post that you really love the art itself of comic.
Oh yeah, it's a wonderful medium. It can do more than movies, I think, and just the endless possibilities.
Well, it can do more than movies just because you're basically limited by your imagination. Animation is closer to comic and always has been, at least in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I can probably say that animation is closer to comics than live action film would be, because you have your strict budget and things are a little cheaper. But yeah, it's being able to just create anything out of your mind. All you need is a pencil and paper. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And even people just listening to my different reviews, you would have seen all the different styles that I've covered here, ranging from basic US superhero comics to I haven't done any of the really fancy, weird comics you sometimes see in Europe and such, but you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. Is there a style that you're more inclined towards?
High energy, things that have weight to it. People like Jason Pearson, Daniel Warren Johnson, James Herron, Scotty Young, Sam Keith. I like individual styles, things that make you stop in your tracks and look at it.
That's more interesting. You're right. I like all sorts of comics. I mean, I'm more of on the story side personally from my background than the art side. But I mean, I always enjoy sometimes just sitting and looking at an image for a little while because something draws my eye to it.
Yeah, I think I found that more if you're an artist, you're more drawn towards other art than the story, and that seems to be true with almost like the wide spectrum of people. People that are writers are more drawn towards story, and it's an interesting thing. Oh, great! My dog's going to start barking in the background now.
Oh, is he a good dog or crazy?
He's a good dog, but he wants to go outside all the time. got dementia and doesn't realize that he's just out.
It happens. Life is life. Uh, as far as on your side here, you've mainly been doing art. Have you ever written an entire comic on your own, or have you just been working on the art side?
Mostly on the art side of things, but yeah, I've written a couple of things on my own that I'm working on right now. Hopefully, have them come out next year.
Hopefully, I'll be happy to see when you post anything about it. I'll be happy to look into that. That's for sure. Uh, I've been trying personally to support a lot of independent creators and talk to independent creators a little bit everywhere, just to see how they're going, how they're feeling, and how the industry's treating them. That's a lot of what we're trying to discuss on these panels. So, a few questions in that particular line of thought here. Uh, I would want to know what leads you to want to join a comic book venture someone's proposing to you or comes to you with.
It has to be a fun story. Like I have to, if I'm reading it, I have to want to draw it. You know, it's just mostly a feeling. It's got to be obviously a good story. It's got to be fun, but it has to be something that I want to draw, something that I think might challenge me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And let's say for no cover, what drew you to joining that venture?
Just the comedy of it. When he was describing the book to me, it was making me crack up, and I thought it would be a nice challenge to come up with something that was based a little bit more in somewhat reality. You know, I guess if that's the right word for it. But you know, based on someone who's actually a living person, I thought it would be a challenge to try to capture that individual in a humorous way.
Mm-hmm. I've seen the style for that one, and it kind of reminds me of Franco-Belgian books more than American comics. Did you take
Mhm.
your inspiration anywhere for it, or did you just decide to go wild?
I took inspiration from a couple of places. Scotty Young, Andre Franquin.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Franco-Belgian artist.
Yeah,
Peyo.
Frank. Yeah, he's a. I mean, I know him very well from all the books I've read from him
Hmm.
over the months and over the years. I mean, he's a staple in
Yeah, Franquin is one of my favorite artists.
he's he's really weird, unfortunately, because he was seriously manic depressive.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes, so you have his really comical stuff
Hmm.
every once in a while, and then you really see that he has a depressive dip, and he does like really dark comics for a little while, and then goes
Oh,
back
yeah.
to something more comical. So and it's really it kind of goes in waves. Kind of a very interesting. Well, he's an interesting personality, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've got his book, the Dark Ideas. It was called in English. I
Hmm.
think it was Ideas Noir.
Yeah, Ethan Walk. I My dad bought that used actually. I can't remember when. A long time ago. Well, a long time ago. Yeah, well, probably about 20 years ago. Jeez, doesn't make me any younger. I mean, then again, Franquin is. I keep remembering him from my youth, but he never wrote. He didn't write much when I was alive. Basically, so he's an odd duck overall, and I really enjoy him overall.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm French Canadian, so for me, Franco Belgian is my cup of tea. Basically, I was born and raised through it. And American
Oh,
comics is my, let's say, the second thing I gravitated towards in the early '90s. I got a lot of Franco-Belgian of American comics. I mean, because one of my friend was collecting them, so kind of traded books around, talked a little bit.
Mhm.
But and then, like just about everybody in my generation, I think I fell into manga, and that's what kept me going with comics for the longest time. So that's more or less my path in comic books.
Yeah, mine was kind of the opposite. I brought in on American comics, obviously, and then discovered Franco-Belgian comics later in life.
Hmm. There's a lot of diversity in Franco-Belgian comic. That's what I
Oh
enjoy
yeah.
more than American comic, where we end up with superheroes the majority of the time.
Hmm.
Do
Yeah,
you think the super? Mhm.
they got books over there about Long John Silver by Matthew Lafray, and
Mhm.
then you got the other end of the spectrum, which is Gaston and Smurfs.
Oh, Gaston Lagaffe is. I mean, that's another staple of my youth. Honestly, kind of thing you would get at the library every other week when you went with your parents.
Hmm.
That was that's a good thing about that's a maybe a bit different about Quebec than in most of North America. I would say there's still a lot of libraries where you can just get comic books, and quite a few of them. The selection is really good. Let's go with another question I'm thinking of here. Uh, when someone brings you an idea, you start working with them. Are they the one running the campaign, or are you helping them out in different ways, other than you're just promoting it by yourself?
They're pretty much the ones running the campaign.
Mhm.
I'm basically just like a work for hire
Okay.
gun at that point. I'll retweet it because it's obviously my work, and I'll try
Mhm.
to promote it as much as I can. But they're the ones running the campaign. They're fulfilling it. They're doing the updates and everything like that.
That's all right. But do you have any input on the campaign itself, or like you said, you're just a work for hire? You do your work and then concentrate on another piece of work afterwards.
Very little input. I had a little bit of input on No Cover just because it was so new to Sierra Whiskey that I tried to help them as much as I could based on my experience. But
Okay.
generally, yeah, it's all them.
All right. Well, that's a good way of looking at it, I guess. Uh, that's part of what I'm trying to look at here, because last week we had Tyler Carpenter here, who's heavily into the marketing and the working on his campaign.
Mhm. That was a good
On
interview. I
your end,
really enjoyed that.
mhm, he was a great guest, and I think it's a good thing to talk to everybody on that spectrum. Though, I mean, you say you're just work for hire, but I mean, we've seen your work on many things already, so that's a good thing. Um, you worked for Image for a while. How many issues did you do when you were working with them?
Five, I think 4 or 5. Pretty
Okay,
sure it was 5. Yeah, it was a book
and
called Death of Love that didn't make any money, but it was. I
oh,
was able to work with one of my favorite writers, Justin Jordan.
mm. And who brought the idea there? Was it Image hiring you, or did Justin come in contact with you for that one?
Well, that was a creator on 50/50 thing, not work for hire.
Hmm.
But Justin, way it came about was Justin came up with several ideas. He posted them on his Facebook, like something that he normally does, and then I was drawn to this one idea, and I did some fan art of it.
Mm.
And then the one day I said, it's on my bucket list to work with Justin Jordan, and he tweeted back to me, "Let's make it happen." So we pretty much started on that project.
And for those 4 or 5 issues, you said, how long did it take? How long did you work, basically?
About 6 to 7 months. It was pretty rough because we had just had our daughter.
Oh, yeah, that would make things difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah, she was just just walking around at that point. So it's and my office space was in the living room, so it was kind of hard. She would come over and she would want, daddy to play with her, but I got to work. So it
Well,
sounds like a kid on my knee while trying to draw a page.
did it affect your art style and your art itself having a young kid?
Um, it made me draw faster, I would say, but not particularly affected in any real way.
Okay. Did you? I'm just trying to think here. It's the thing that I'm often talking about when I'm looking at things is, unfortunately, a lot of independent comics, they go more for the older crowd. Let's say people
Hmm.
in my generation, in the late 20s, 30s, even 40s. Um, I see there's missing something for the younger crowd. Is this something that you noticed as well, or that you would want to address at some point?
Um, yeah, I guess you could say that we do cater to adults more.
Hmm.
We do need some more young adult books in comics, and especially indie comics.
Hmm.
And I'm working on one myself. It's called Jaeger Bomb. That's going to be for all ages.
That's,
Sorry,
I think,
I keep
a
getting
good
distracted by
thing
my
to
damn dog.
have. It's weird because if I look at things I've recently backed, as an example, uh,
Hmm.
I'm okay with ISOM from Eric July. My kids reading that, I'm pretty much okay with. There's a bit of violence, but I mean, in the end, they've both read mangas that are just as bad. So I don't have any issues with that. But outside of that, a lot of the comics that I've backed are for an older crowd in
Hmm.
general. I mean, the only big campaign that I've seen recently that was, let's say, more targeted towards younger crowds were the Crimson Ren from Clownfish TV, or Clownfish Neon, and
Oh yeah.
Achromatic Blue Chronicles from Drunk 3PO, Jay. And neither of those are, let's say, comicsgate, or even, well, some people would say comicsgate adjacent, but I don't think either of them would associate with that
Hmm.
particular hashtag. Outside of that, is it maybe a comicsgate issue that people are really just going for more mature things, or is it really something that we see in indie comics in general?
I never really thought about it like that. Man,
Hmm.
maybe it could be a Comsgate issue because we're mostly adults. And no, no, actually, no. I'm gonna have to say no on that because
Okay.
there are people in Comsgate that want books for their kids too. They want their kids to be able to read the comics as
Hmm.
well. I think it's an overall indie comics sort of thing. I mean, we're all adults. We all grew up with a certain type of book, the darker kind of gritty hero, and I think that's what we're catering to because it's hard to get kids into comics these days, and manga is kicking our butt.
What do you think manga is kicking your butt? That's always a question.
That's a tough question. It's hard to answer. It's more accessible, more
Hmm.
easily, more easy to purchase. You can get it at Target and places like that, Walmart. They're really out there, and it's easier to start. You start at volume one and you just keep going.
Well, indie comics, you generally start at volume one as well. That's what makes it a little bit better than regular superhero comics, let's say, from the DCs and Marvels of the world, or even Spawn, if you look at Image. I mean, I'm always worried here. I want to read Spawn. Honestly, I've remember reading a few of them in the 90s, but right now, if I'm like, oh yeah, I want to start reading Spawn, I don't know where to start. and that's from a single creator as well.
Hmm. Yeah, he's got a lot of different Spawn books out there. It's hard to
Well,
tell which one.
Gunslinger Spawn is the one that I think I can get into easier
Hmm.
because it's easier to get the books
It's
overall.
got that beautiful Brett Booth art too.
Well, Spawn's a pinup comic in the end. People always talk about Vampirella and a few of those where and I think it's Nerdrotic that calls those FAP covers.
Hmm.
Spawn is pretty much the same, right? It's what sells the comic is the Spawn on the cover, not even the story or the art itself.
Yeah, I can see that.
Franco-Belgian comics are also pretty easy to get into. I think one of the big advantage of Franco-Belgian is that you can grab a book, and even if it's issue or number 26, I mean, you're going to get normally a full story that's pretty much separate from everything else in that
Hmm.
book. Do you
Yeah,
think that would be a
the one and done sort of thing is a very good jumping on point for people. A good example of a continued story that, if we're talking about getting into things that have multiple volumes, Common America, good book. Each book is
Mhm.
self-contained, but builds on itself and its mythology and its characters in little ways. But each book is self-contained, so you can read each arc by itself.
I never got into Common America, but I've seen it just about everywhere. It's probably should be on my to-do list basically from what people have told me. I'm just a bit swamped right now just for some reason in the last 2 weeks. I mean, I was on vacation. First week nothing happens. Second week everybody's releasing some indie comics and everybody's doing I got like one of the few DC books that I still that I review steadily, the Doom Patrol stuff. So I'm a bit confused here, and I'm starting back up at work next Monday, and it's supposed to be super busy.
Yeah, it's a good book. It's got great art, good story. Um, it's kid friendly as well. It's one of those few kid friendly books out there in the indie market.
There's some people who absolutely despise it, and I think we know about. But let's say it's good that some people are talking about it. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm always worried. Mhm.
it's either a you love it or you hate it sort of thing. And people that hate it have their personal reasons for that, and not something I want to get into because that's their business. But overall, I think it's a good book, good quality read.
Mhm. Another little thing I'm thinking about here, and it's a thing that I'm actually thinking about possibly as a business venture in the future. Uh, Comic book magazines have pretty much died off in America, but they're
Hmm.
still going, well, not super strong, but they're going decently strong in Europe with Magazine Tintin, Spirou, and a few of those on the side. Do you think that would be something that could benefit the American comic book industry?
That's a good question. I think it would benefit it, but it would be hard to do because you'd have to have honest journalism, and most comic book websites don't have honest journalism. They're pretty much Marvel and DC shills.
I was more thinking of a like an anthology, a book with a little bit of comics from everyone, excerpts from different books, and like in pre-publication, like they
Mm,
do in Magazine Spirou, as an example. So let's say no cover. We'll go with that one. Every month for a couple of months, like 10, like 6 months, we put 10 pages in from the book in the magazine, and people can follow it that way. And have a few comic strips here and there, contracts people, contract a few artists, maybe just to, well, give them a job in a way. just to have something that we can say that we pay some people for
Hmm.
in the long run.
I think that would be pretty difficult to achieve. It's been done a couple of times. Ethan Van Sciver did it with his Cool Story Bro for his Rainbow Brute campaign,
Hmm.
and Graham Nolan did it with Two Fisted Manly Two Fisted Tales or something like that. He
Hmm.
did an anthology book with a bunch of different pros, but I think the biggest obstacle for something like that would be the pay. How do you pay the artists? Is there going to be profit pay, a profit sharing, or is there going to just be their page rate, and then once you find out what someone else is making and what their deal is, you're going to want that same deal. I think it'd be tricky to do. It would
Okay,
probably be a massive headache to accomplish. That's why I don't think there are very many around.
that is a very good point. Something for me to think of, because it's a thing. Like I said, that's common in Europe, as an example. For
Hmm.
Magazine Spirou, I mean, I get it every week. Every week would be crazy for something in the US, I think. But you you get a magazine every week. There's 3 or 4 stories plus a few editorial cartoons and just comic strips. So that's a that's a really nice thing overall, in my opinion. But a little bit weird. At least for the US, it'd be really weird because, like you said, everybody would negotiate their rate individually, things like that. So that might be difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, and sometimes comic artists can be petty bitches. We'll just bluntly say that.
Well, we see that unfortunately on X quite a bit, let's say.
Yeah.
It's I mean, some people are petty, but they're understandable or understood, and there's just some people that are out of their league when they start talking to other people. That's the unfortunate bit.
Right.
All right, we're not going to go for much longer, just because I'm unfortunately a little bit busy as well today.
Okay.
But there's a few things I still want to look at or talk about. Um, it was a thing that you actually went through and talked about on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, this week. The ancillary products, the second products that you can have on campaigns, especially on things like Indiegogo and things like that.
Hmm.
Uh, what do you think is a good secondary product to try to boost your campaign or uh, boost your numbers, let's say, for a thing
For,
like that?
for the add-ons,
Hmm.
or just another book to buy, I would say another book would be the best bet. If you have a library built up of something, it's best to have those add-ons. If not, if you don't have it and this is your first one, maybe a supplemental book to the book. It was suggested by somebody that maybe a behind the scenes sort of book could be done as an add-on, and I could see that. But
Hmm.
it's mostly in the indie sphere. You have people that are, especially in comicsgate, you have people that are collectors, and then you have readers. And I think someplace like comicsgate is mostly built up of collectors than readers. So it's a tricky situation, but I think personally a supplemental kind of book.
That would be a good idea. Yeah, I see that as well. I mean, like you said, someone with a library, it's easy to just put on as an add-on your other
Mhm.
books. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
But
like if you're
behind the
in
scenes,
volume 4, then you want to add all volumes 1 through 3 on there.
well, that's usually how I get into most things. I'll be
Hmm.
honest. When it's just issue one, unfortunately, often enough, I'll just go and buy the digital copy just because shipping gets freakishly expensive.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
when you have multiple books like that, it's more worth it to get it shipped at least.
Hmm.
Another thing that it's a thing that I personally don't like, but I know a lot of people like, is the multiple covers that keep being put on or added on. Is this something that you feel is worth it, or should we just really concentrate on one book, one cover, and go with that?
I think the personally, I think the maximum amount of covers you should have is two. If you can have variant covers, but some people like to do more. And
Mhm.
that's their business. I'm not a fan of that myself. I don't. That's the collector market speaking. And
I mean, I've seen 16 for an issue one at one point. So,
yeah, it gets a little ridiculous at times.
I mean, I would be okay with one cover for a soft cover and one cover for an art cover. And that's the thing that I don't see a whole lot in the US is art cover books. Do you have an idea why that would be?
No, that's a good question. But I think some people in the indie market are going towards the Franco-Belgian type of model. Putting out
Hmm.
a couple of books a year, the hardbacks. It's a good model to shoot for, but I don't know why the
It's weird because almost all the books that I've seen, they're either trade paperbacks or
yeah.
it's a good quality cardboard it's used for the cover. Like the
Hmm.
ISOM books, as an example, they're really high quality. But I mean, I would rather than 35, I'd pay 50 for an ISOM book with an art cover instead, as an example.
Same. Yeah, I'd prefer the hardcover books. They just look better on a shelf. But I think again, that's the collector market. People want to put them in bags and boards, put them in their collection.
That's the thing that I've always had issues with putting things
Mhm.
in bags and boards. I mean, I've got even there, I put the boxes with my comics and bags and boards on my shelves
Hmm.
because that's where books go.
Right.
uh, okay, right, we'll just end with that simple question here. Do you think there's a way for the comic book market to get out of the slump it is right now? Do you have a few things you can think of that would get people to start buying more comic books in general? And maybe, rather than having 300, 400 people backing a campaign, going to those, let's say, 1,000 numbers.
Oh man, if I could figure that out, I'd be doing pretty well on campaigns.
um, yeah, that's the artist question, I think. And
Yeah.
one thing that someone brought up was that a rising tide lifts all boats. I
Hmm.
think rather than, like you were saying, some artists being a little bit petty, if we had more people working together and working and helping each other, might be a better thing overall. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it would definitely benefit if people were working together instead of being uh, jealous of each other or whatever the issue is. Man.
Hmm.
But yeah, the rising, like you said, the rising tide lifts all boats. If we're gonna make it as an indie in an indie community, then that's something that needs to happen.
Because
People need to.
one of the things someone said, and it kind of stuck by me here, is you want people to stay in your store or stay in your group. So a lot of people there right now, we're still working on, one campaign at a time, one person at a time. Maybe it would be time to not have a publisher, but have some sort of initiative just of people working together. Like, I'm done with my campaign. I'm starting fulfillment. Is there someone I can help with his campaign? What do you think that would be a good thing overall, or something that would help everybody?
Yeah, I think that would be tremendous help. People would just put aside their differences and help each other out like that.
Mhm.
It's like indie comics is like a um, an outlet mall. You have a bunch of different shops, and you want them to come to your shop, but you also want to keep them in that mall, that little outlet mall, shopping,
Mhm.
spending money, so that the whole thing doesn't collapse around you.
And as we know, malls have been collapsing.
Yeah.
That's a sad sad statement. Um, those are all things that I think are really interesting and that need to be put into people's mind so we can start having better discussions like the one we've had now,
Mhm.
and maybe have more people come together while remaining independent. I think the remaining independent is also very important here.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So I thank you very much for spending a little bit more than 30 minutes with me. It was very nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Do you have anything to plug before we go?
No Cover is still in demand. You can get that on Indiegogo right now. The
All
story
right.
of John Malin trying to find his package. It's a comedy
Yep.
adventure in post-apocalyptic Detroit, so current day Detroit.
That is such a sad statement. And I remember Detroit because I've gone through there by bus a couple times. That was not a pleasant experience. All right. Well, to anybody listening now on the replay, on the review, thank you very much for listening to us today. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day. Keep on reading comics, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep analyzing them and talking to people who like comics and create them. And I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.